The agenda for next week. Mrs. Maloof is not here this evening because she is ill. We don't think she'll be here Tuesday, so Mr. Bailey will do the invocation and the pledge for us next week. The first item on the agenda next week will be the election of officers, and we'll be approving the minutes from the 12/1/20 minutes. We'll have to have an approval of the agenda and committee reports. We actually don't have any committee reports this month. And are we going to have superintendent's recognitions?
I don't think we've got anything this
Not yet.
coming off the break. No.
Okay. We'll look forward to next month's recognitions. Yeah. And we have not had any requests to appear before the board. Is that right? Okay, good. Superintendent's department reports. Dr. Green.
Yes, ma'am. The communications report is there as it is each month. And you'll see the communication data for September, October, November reported there at the top, and then some of our most popular, top performing Facebook posts. So I'll just let that there for you to read. If you haven't already, I'll encourage you to do so. And if you have, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions? No? Good. All right. Is that it for you?
That's all for me.
You're off easy tonight. Okay, Dr. Thompson, enrollment report.
Yes, ma'am. The 80th day enrollment report from December is posted for your review.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or concerns about that? All right. Business service.
Just a comment that our alternative school seems to be doing real well.
Yeah, it's I think they're pretty happy over there for the most part.
Good. All right. And Ms. Houston, looks like you're up next with our business services report.
Ma'am, good evening. Our threshold for getting a bid and coming before the board is $25,000. So we raised that from about $10,000 a few years ago. So what the board has asked is to see any invoices between $10,000 and $24,999. And for the month of November and December, we had none that fit the criteria. We do have one item that we wanted to make you aware of, and it is the company Troxel Communications. This is Chromebook purchases. We bought a lot of Chromebooks over the summer, as you all are aware. Well, as the year went through, people needed to store those Chromebooks when the students started coming back. And so different schools and departments started requesting Chromebook carts, and the IT got the request, and they obtained 3 bids, just like they were supposed to. But as the request started coming in, we went a little over $25,000, and we just wanted to let y'all know. Going forward, we're going to make sure that all those requests are taken care of during the budget process, so IT will know exactly how many they have to purchase in the future. So hopefully this won't happen again. For our, this is our monthly personal protective equipment list. Just wanted to update y'all every month. There's really no changes to the prior months. And I believe we've checked with our nurses and they have adequate supplies to open up next week.
Good to go.
All right.
This next item is something that came across Dr. McMichael's email, and we thought that it was pretty interesting and wanted to share with you. The Georgia Lottery, the first sheet is the returns to education for the years from 1994, when the Georgia Lottery began, to 2020. You can see $22.3 billion has been given to Georgia students, either through pre-K or HOPE recipients for college. If you look down at the bottom left-hand corner, you will see that 5.6 million tickets are sold, $5.6 million in tickets are sold each day, and it's an average of $3.3 million that goes back to education through the Georgia Lottery. The next page is just for Barrow County. So of course they don't tell us how much we spend on the lottery here in Barrow County, but it does tell us how much comes back to Barrow County For the retailer, since inception, $30.5 million, $1.8 million for just the year of 2020. That's the retailer's commission. We have about 63 retailers for Georgia Lottery here in Bear County. The prizes paid out, $284 million since inception, 18.9 since for 2020. For host students, they paid 12,364 Barrow County HOPE recipients. It amounts to $74 million, 1,484 just for the year of 2020, and that amounted to $5.8 million. For pre-K students, since inception, they've helped 12,354 students in an amount of $45.6 million. Just for 2020, it's 716 students for $3.18 million. Bear County has about 392 students right now in 18 classrooms. We get about $1.8 million per year for the Georgia Lottery for pre-K. And so the total return back to the county, $9 million for 2020 and $120 million for education. Or not, it wouldn't, that's not just for education, that's for the retailer commission and the prizes paid out too. So no, the 120 is just for education. Because they paid out $284 million in prizes and 32 retailer commissions. So just really interesting information that we never really get to see. So just wanted to share that with you. And that's all I have tonight.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Perno, System Operations Report.
Good evening. Yes, our one item tonight there is an update on our West Side Middle School addition project. And just go through the photo. Those are taken before Christmas, so they've got a little dated, but I think I mentioned at the last meeting, the contractor was able to get the roof in place, plastic covering over the windows, so they're dried in and able to work right now through any wet weather and cold weather that we get. They've got the spray foam insulation. If you've been by there all the way around the building, they've started brick on the back of the building, so things are progressing very well.
On time and under budget, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, I think I told Joe earlier, I was just happened to be out by there today, and there's a lot of activity going on out there. Really making some progress in the life.
Good. Dr. Moten, do you have a teaching and learning report for us tonight?
Yes, I'd like to call Dr. David Beelan to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy New Year. Here's hoping 2021 has much better things in store for us all. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak for just a few moments tonight. I've come to let you inform you of a new opportunity for our students that we're really excited about. And it's going to be called the Barrow County School System Student Technology Competition. If you go to the next slide, this is part of an effort that's already ongoing in the state. There's a Georgia Student Technology Competition. I'm blessed to have been a part of the Georgia Educational Technology Consortium. I'm actually a board member, and they have three main projects. One is a state technology conference every November. Another one is grants, innovation grants for our teachers. We actually have a Bear Creek teacher this year win one of the $3,500 grants. And the third thing is the Georgia Student Technology Competition. It started back in 2001, so I believe this is the 21st year of the competition. It was previously called the Educational Technology Fair, but it was renamed just recently to the Student Technology Competition. It started by an educator named Lou Dewberry back in 2001. As you can see on the slide, there's about 750 or so projects that participate at the state level, representing the work of 1,000 students. So it's an exciting opportunity for our students to have a chance to participate in this. On the next slide, it talks about one of the advantages of participating is mentioned, and that's scholarship opportunities for our students who are in 12th grade or seniors. One is the Lou Dewberry Scholarship. and it's awarded randomly to a participating high school senior. And then there are 15 categories, and any senior who places first place in any of those categories also receives a scholarship. On the next slide, you kind of start talking about what it's going to look like in Barrow County. So our students will get an opportunity to move up to the state competition, but they must first start in Barrow County. It's open to all 3rd through 12th grade students. Students can enter individually, or they can compete in a team of 2. There are 15 categories, and I'll actually show you those categories in just a moment. They compete by grade level, starting with 3rd grade. 3rd and 4th competes against each other, and you can see that it's 2 grade bands up to 11th grade and 12th grade. For 2021, both the regional competition and the state competition are going to be virtual. That started last year. There was a big debate on whether to hold it in person or to go virtual with it. And as the situation with the pandemic got worse, they went virtual and actually created an all-new platform for the judging. I was fortunate to get to serve as a judge in video production, which is a past passion of mine. Having students complete videos to show demonstrate mastery of content standards. And it worked flawlessly, and it was tremendously successful. So now we're talking about, do we want to go back in person, or do we want to continue to have it virtually? I think there are a lot of opportunities for students to network with the judges and with other students, and there is something that's lost when you don't have it in person. So there's a part of me that hopes we do have it in person if things improve to the point that we can in 2022. But this year's competition will be virtual, all virtual at all levels. So basically the way it works is there's a county competition typically, and students who win the categories move up to the regional competition, and if they win first place at regional, then they move up to state. Regional level winners are eligible, like I said, to compete at state level. So this slide just kind of gives you an idea of why we want our students to have this opportunity to be able to participate in this competition. We know that computer science is very vital to our growing U.S. economy. And basically, there's not a field that you can think of that technology does not impact the work that people do regardless of what occupation they're in. So we're very excited to be able to give our students this opportunity to become more familiar with these areas. So the next slide shows the categories, and so I want to give you just a chance. I'm not going to read these out to you, but I think you can all see them. This is pretty exciting. Like I said, my favorite is video production because I did a lot of work with students in my previous role in technology with video production, and so that's a fun one for me to grade every year. I've been fortunate to get that one because if they put me in coding or something like that, I'm afraid I'd be terribly lost. Here's some samples on the next slide of some of the projects that students have entered. We're going to attempt to play a video that will show you, it's no audio with it, but it'll show you a game. Go ahead and click on that if you would. Just shows you a game that it may open in a new window, maybe. If it won't come up, it's okay. But I've been amazed at each year that I have served as a judge. And I actually judge face-to-face as well. I love the interaction with the kids, being able to ask them questions about the projects and what all they, how they got to the point of creating their project. So it was a little bit different this year with the virtual competition. The students obviously were not interviewed, but they had to make a video that explained their project since we couldn't do the interviews. So then we just watched their video and then looked at the project from that standpoint. So this is a game. I wouldn't even know where to start to create something like this. But we have some very creative high school and elementary and middle school students that can create these types of things. So this is just an example of one game that one of them created. So here's the next slide shows a timeline of what it's going to look like in Barrow County this year. The good news is it's going to be a very quick timeline because it's all going to be done in 3 months. So we're going to start to promote this with our students. We are excited about getting this information out to them. We don't know how many students will have participate this year, but we're going to take the ones that we do and we're just going to build off of that. But February 28th is the deadline for them to register. They'll upload the projects March the 1st through the 7th. We'll judge for a couple of weeks toward the end of March, and then our goal is to announce the winners on March 30th. So one caveat to our students getting to participate is they have to compete in a regional competition. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Unfortunately for Barrow County, there is no region. And so we had to create a region. So we decided to just create it out of the Northeast Georgia region. If you look at that map closely, you'll see that there are some areas that are not shaded in. If you look at South Central Georgia, you see that the background is white, it's not shaded in. Those areas also do not have regions. Northeast Georgia had a region a few years ago. Clark County was coordinating it. And whoever coordinated it from Clark County, I don't know if they retired or moved on or what happened, and they just had no one else that would take it up. So we've been talking about it for over a year here in Barrow County, and I've got some great partners, and I'll share those with you in just a moment, that have agreed for us to not only have a county competition, but also facilitate a regional competition. The first year, the county competition is the regional competition, because we're not required to invite anybody from outside of Barrow County. So we're going to take advantage of that, grow it slow and do it well. And then over the course of 3 years, by the third year, we have to invite other counties, students from other counties in the Northeast Georgia region. One idea I have that I'm very excited about the possibility is hosting it, if we go back to in-person hosting, that's our choice, on the campus with Sims Academy and VASA and Lanier Tech, and you've got the amphitheater. I mean, it would be a perfect spot. We've got ample parking for all the students that will come, and we're kind of centrally located. Maybe not so much for the Madison County and the folks more on that side, but for most of the districts, we're pretty close by. So that would be pretty exciting if that works out in a couple of years. So on the next slide, it kind of shows you the folks that I have recruited. I have agreed to serve as the director for the Northeast Georgia Regional Competition, but I knew I was not going to do it alone. And that's one of the reasons why it took over a year, is the timing had to be right. And I actually had some folks contact me after I had conversations over a year ago about expressing interest in being a partner with this. So two of these famous people you already know, Caroline Bucky Beaver, who I just like saying her name because of the way it flows. She is the instructional technology coordinator, as you know, for Barrow County, and has just done an amazing job with assisting teachers with digital instruction during this time that we've done digital learning. She has agreed to be a part of this. Lee Bain, who you also know, Director of Innovative Learning. But we also have a couple of folks that we're really excited about from RESA and GISTIC. GISTIC is the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center. Will Dodd is amazing. He comes to Barrow County. We are a member of GISTIC. Each year we pay membership to be a part of that. He does lots of professional learning for our teachers and also hands-on activities with our students, and he's just phenomenal. Carrie Sigmund is just as amazing. She's the Director of Innovation and Learning Design for Northeast Georgia RESA, and she's phenomenal. So this is a strong team to get this started, and I really appreciate their willingness to partner with this work. So once we go to a regional timeline, this is kind of what it'll look like. We're going to have to kind of back our county competition up a little bit once we start allowing regional people to come in. So the end of February would be the registration deadline for the county competition. Early March, the projects would need to be uploaded. In late March would be the project judging, and then end of March would announce the winners. In April, we would promote those to the state. So to determine who's going to go to region, we're going to back that up probably more like January, February kind of timeline. This last slide just gives you some websites that you can get some more information. Our first two websites are still in development, but nearing completion. But the third site is the site for the Georgia Student Technology Competition. And it not only has the categories, if you're interested, it has the rubrics for each project, and just a lot more information about the intricate details of the state competition. I just want to share that with y'all tonight. We're really excited about the opportunities that this is going to provide for our students. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
So did I hear correctly that since we're going to be the only county in the region participating this year, I presume we'll have lots of winners?
Yes, we're going to have a lot of participation at the state level. I'm going to try to ride that horse for about 2 years.
There you go.
Really, the only requirement the first year is to have one or two schools participate. But that just didn't make sense in Barrow to me, but we might as well open it up to all of our students. It's a new competition, so getting word out is going to be important, but we're not anticipating a large amount of participation necessarily in this first year. And I like that because it gives us the opportunity to grow it and do it well, which is really important to me. So,
Right.
yeah, but for 2 years, it's all Barrow.
Great.
Thank you.
Exciting work.
Good program. I want to thank you for bringing that, because as you kept going through, I was getting more, you can't see with the mask, but I was getting more and more excited, because these are things that, having a husband that's been in recruiting for over 30 years. These are the kinds of jobs that we're now going to have these kind of students to pull from. And y'all are helping bring this to these kids at an earlier age.
Absolutely.
So it's great.
Our vision is
It's
for this
great.
thing to take off. It's going to start slow.
That's great.
And small. But our vision is for this to really take off and be something that we'll always be proud that started right here in Barrow County, but also gave opportunities for the kids in this region to be a part of it.
I could have stood up and clapped for you.
I wish I could show you
Giving
what
you a
blocks.
standing
They're
ovation.
really, really, from that one slide, you can't get an idea of the quality and the amazing work these kids do. And there's very few restrictions. It's very, this is manageable projects for students to do as compared to some of the other things that, and we already have programs in the district that are ideal for this, at Sims and in all of our schools, honestly. And also like that it goes all the way down to third grade and getting these kids interested at an early age. A lot of these type of competitions are usually more in the latter years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to call John Sinclair to help me there. My email says sometimes.
Dr. Michael, did you have an update on something you wanted to give us
At the end.
at the end? Okay. Planning and personnel, Ms. Beggs, there you are. Okay, great. All right, moving on to new business. We're going to have an affirmation of the strategic plan, system, vision, mission, and beliefs. And that's item 1. Do we want to talk about that at any length?
Yeah, I can, that's the annual, I think all but one of you have done it at this point. Some of you several times. That's just our annual reaffirmation of the board supporting our strategic plan and our vision, mission, and beliefs going forward. And then also the Board of Education's Code of Ethics. So if you haven't read those in a minute, you might want to take a read through them before next week, but nothing's changed. So we decided to do that annually just as a reaffirmation to our public and to our staff and students that that's what we're about.
Okay, so do we want to put that on the consent agenda? We can all have time to read that prior to, and like we have, most of us done it before. So.
Yeah, and you also have a form in your packets to look over and sign too.
Okay. Next is going to be the security camera installation services, and that's John St. Clair's department.
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I apologize. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm going to keep my camera muted. The district has 279 replacement and 156 new security cameras to install in 13 schools around the county. We posted an RFP for installation services for these cameras, and 4 vendors responded. Low bid respondent Source Connect Technologies had various provisions in their response that were undesirable, such as requiring a 40% upfront down payment, and also putting some installation services as a responsibility of the district that should be the responsibility of the installer. That made their response less desirable. The second low bid respondent, Adapt to Solve, their response met the terms of the RFP fully, without undesired provisions. They were only $119 more than the low bid respondent, and they're a local. They are not adversely listed on the SAM.gov database.
Have we done business with them in the past?
No, ma'am. And actually, because they have not performed such work for us previously, it's our intent to ask you to award the contract to them for the entire amount, but we are going to begin their work at only one school. And if their work is satisfactory at that school, we'll commence doing the work at the remainder. And if it's not, we'll terminate the contract, pay them for the job, assuming that the job is complete, and bring the remainder back to the board for approval for another vendor.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so the financial impact of the job is $37,100 $162.50 from splashed IT funds. The superintendent recommends awarding the security camera installation to Adapt to Solve of Winder, Georgia, in the amount of $37,162.50.
Does anybody have any questions about that first? And is everybody okay with putting that on the consent agenda? Is Bramlett, am I seeing a nod? Okay. That will be on the consent agenda also. Next is the E-rate network switches.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And I have 3 E-rate bids I'm bringing to you here in a row. So a lot of what I'm going to say on this one applies to the other 2 as well. The district has access to federal E-rate funds for the coming fiscal year. As part of our continual improvement and refresh cycle process, we're looking to purchase network switch equipment in addition to other equipment being presented under those other separate board agenda items. A combined RFP was posted for all equipment being sought, and 4 vendors responded in total for the various parts of the combined RFP. For the network switch component, 2 vendors responded with proposals. The low bid respondent, One Accord of Eatonton, Georgia, did not meet the terms of the RFP. They left out components and they substituted different manufacturers from what was requested. Under normal circumstances, their response would just be disqualified. However, E-rate requirements mandate that product substitutions be allowed and considered. Districts may request approval for responses that are not the low bid, but you have to justify your request, and such requests go through a review process. So we have filed a request with E-rate for MXN's response, not One Accord's response. The E-rate funded purchases involve a lengthy multi-step process with a review period and subsequent funding approval or revision by the E-rate program. And it's our expectation that the district will be funded at the 80% level again this year. That's been our level consistently for the last several years and is based upon our free and reduced lunch count, leaving 20% for the district to cover out of pocket. So for every dollar of a purchase, the government will give us 80% or 80 cents, and we pay 20 cents if we get funded at the level we expect. It is possible that the district's funding level may vary slightly, or that items on the purchase that we submit may be deemed ineligible for funding. Accordingly, we are requesting authorization for a variance in our district's maximum out-of-pocket of up to 5%. So should our out-of-pocket requirement be what we expect, or within 5% of what we expected, we're asking for approval to proceed with the purchase without coming back to the board for additional approval. Should the district's out-of-pocket requirement exceed 5%, however, we would bring that back to the board for revised approval before proceeding with the purchase. This is similar to the way we've done E-rate purchases in the past. The E-rate response is expected anytime between June and December of 2021. That's when we'll know what the government is committed to providing us funding-wise. And respondent MXN has done similar business with the district before. They've met all the terms of the RFP, and they are not adversely listed in the sound.gov database. So the way this works is the total purchase is $437,002.25. 80% of that will be funded by the government, the E-rate program, at $349,601.80. The district was responsible for 20% funded of $87,400.45. With the allowance that we're asking for of the variance of up to 5%, our maximum out-of-pocket would then be $91,770.47. So the superintendent is recommending authorizing the purchase of E-rate funded network switch equipment from non-low bid respondent MXN of Woodstock, Georgia, in the amount of $437,002.25, 80% funded by E-rate and 20% funded by the district, with an allowance for a variance in funding of up to 5%, making our maximum out-of-pocket $91,770.47.
John, would it be easier for you? Do you anticipate this having to come back to us because the funding level will be more than 5% over what you're requesting?
I do not. We did have to come back to you on one bid one time. I don't remember what specifically happened, but we were over our variance that we had asked you for. But pretty much we use a consultant, so we know what's eligible and what's not eligible. And so our requests are usually pretty much spot on. So something pretty big would have to happen for us to miss our target here.
Well, the reason I asked the question is because if there's only a 5% increase between the 87.4 and the 91.7, and we approved the 87.4, you could actually go up, if we wanted to get technical about it, by as more than that without having to come back to us for approval, keeping with our $25,000 policy about anything over 25,000 coming to the board.
Sure.
So I'm just asking if you think this is sufficient, we'll go with it. If you think we should give you a little more wiggle room, that I would ask that we consider that.
I appreciate that. I think this is sufficient. Something will have gone pretty wrong if my numbers are off by more than that amount.
Okay, that's fine. Does anybody have any questions about this?
I would just say if it's more than that 5%, it doesn't sound like you expect that, and there'd probably be a good reason you'd need to be able to bring that to us and explain to us why it's more than 5%. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir. So the cost of the total project does not change. We have a locked-in response from the vendor of that $437,000. The only things that could possibly go wrong are either one, we'll have requested something be funded by E-rate that they don't consider eligible. And in that case, what they'll tell us is, we're going to pay for these parts. We're not going to pay for that part. You can buy it, but you're totally 100% out of pocket on that part. There's a long list of things that are eligible and ineligible, but we have a consultant that looks that over with us. And so I don't anticipate that happening. The other possibility would be if something catastrophic happened to the economy and the whole E-rate program had to reduce its funding level, but those numbers are already set. So I don't anticipate that happening either.
John, this is Beverly Kelly. I got a question when you were talking about that. Did I understand you to say, because I was trying to write it down, that you said that the reason that we went with the non-low bid on this is because the low bid did not meet the requirements of the full bid that we put out?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, there were two reasons we submitted for the non-low bid response. The first was they, in fact, missed part of the response. In addition to the switches, there are a variety of components that you use to connect the switches together, special cables, special interfaces. And there were actually, if I recall correctly, 300 or 400 of those that they simply left out of their response, meaning we would have to go out of pocket to buy those parts to make the response they gave us even work. It would not work as submitted. And then the other one is that from a technical perspective, the solution they offered was not as good as the solution that we requested.
Okay, yeah, I got that right written down. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions, comments? Can this go on the consent agenda? Okay. Next is the E-rate for wireless. John, you're still up.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, and I'll be less wordy on this one, I promise. Similar situation, we have access to federal E-rate funds, and as part of our improvement process, we are requesting some additional wireless networking equipment. And the RFP that was posted had 4 responses, and for the wireless portion, only one vendor submitted a proposal. That was MXN of Woodstock, Georgia. They've done similar business with us before. They've met all terms of the RFP, and they are not adversely listed in the SAM.gov database. And again, we're anticipating 80% funding with 20% out of pocket. That leaves us only with an out of pocket of $6,329.60 out of Splosh Technology funds. So the superintendent recommends authorizing the purchase of wireless networking equipment from sole bid respondent MXN in the amount of $31,648 to be funded 80%, $25,318.40 by E-rate funds, and 20%, or $6,329.60 by the district.
Okay. Any questions about that? I haven't asked this, but I think I know the answer to it. You've got all of this in your budget, right?
Yes, ma'am. This will come out of Splosh Technology funds.
Okay. So it's there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, E-rate UPS.
All right, and the last one. Again, we have access to federal E-rate funds for the coming fiscal year. As part of our combined RFP, we asked for uninterrupted power supplies for multiple schools. 5 proposals were submitted by the 4 vendors, and the low bid respondent won a quart of Eaton. And again, they substituted a different manufacturer from what we requested, and the products are not as durable as what we specified. We've actually tested their product line before and determined we were not interested in installing them in the district. Again, under normal circumstances, we would have just disqualified them, but E-rate requires that we entertain their response. SHI's proposal met all the specifications of the RFP, and so we filed a request to go with SHI instead, and they are the second low bid response. Again, we are asking for the 5% variance in our funding level in case something happens with our response. And we've done business with SHI previously. They met all the terms of the RFP, and they're not adversely listed in SAM.gov. So the financial impact is $66,663, 80% by E-rate, which is $53,330.40, 20% out of pocket by the district, $13,332.60, with the 5% variance making our maximum out of pocket $13,999.23. The superintendent recommends authorizing the purchase of E-rate funded UPS equipment from non-low bid respondent SHI of Somerset, New Jersey, in the amount of $66,663, 80% funded by E-rate, 20% funded by the district with an allowance for a variance in funding levels of up to 5%, making our maximum out of pocket $13,999.23.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we put this on the consent agenda also? All right, thank you, Mr. St. Clair.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Hope you feel better.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a policy revision, IDCH dual enrollment. Dr. Moten.
Policy revision is IDCH dual enrollment. And you can see a summary there of what dual enrollment actually is, the program in and of itself. And the purpose of the revision is to update our language and our local board policy so that it's consistent with state Board of Education language. Specifically, the term institute appears in our policy, and we have stricken that and made the record, or we will be making a recommendation that the word colleges appears there, and where move on when ready with the acronym MOWR appears in our policy, we will be making a recommendation that that language be replaced with dual enrollment so that we're consistent with state board policy and the appearance of the language there. And then the second one, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
The second one is policy IHF, graduation requirements for students entering fall 2008, 2009, and thereafter. Again, consistent with state board policy, language has been updated to include an alternate diploma. And you'll see there that we have added that language to define clearly what the alternate diploma is. And also, we have defined which students would qualify for the alternate diploma, essentially students entering ninth grade for the first time prior to 2020-21 would still qualify and receive a regular high school diploma. And then students entering for the first time after 2020-21 would qualify for the alternate diploma. So looking at the dual enrollment policy, the superintendent does recommend, based on a thorough review of the policy from the Teaching and Learning Department, for policy IDCH, the superintendent does recommend that this policy be placed on the table for public review until the next regularly scheduled meeting. And then secondly, for policy IHF, the graduation requirements, where we're also updating language to be consistent with state Board of Education policy. The superintendent recommends, based on the thorough review from the teaching and learning department, that this policy also be placed on the board. I'm sorry, that this policy also be placed on the table for public review until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
All right. So at this point, we'll simply place these on the table for further review. And then at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we will vote on. Everybody got that?
Did I bring this, or did it used to be called the enrollment?
You did not, we probably drank that, and yes, it's true. Both.
So we're going back to the future?
Yes, we are. It's dual enrollment, and can move on. Ready? Now we're going back to dual enrollment. So keep drinking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep those policy writers busy.
They must have been having a slow day at the State Department. Thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. Furno, Superior Commercial Cleaning for Custodial Support.
We are making a recommendation this evening to have Superior Commercial Cleaning help provide support for our custodial program along with Primero staffing. Superior Commercial Cleaning helped us several years ago when we were first moving into this staffing company model to fill in where we had some deficiencies. And so we worked with them before, done a good job for us in the past, but just what we're in the midst of right now with COVID, we're not immune to that, certainly with the cleaning aspect of things, trying to hire and retain folks. And so we're looking for just some additional support. In the financial impact piece, I should have stated that anticipated cost of $150,000 for the rest of the fiscal year, that does not take us beyond what's been allotted in our current budget. So we're working within our FY21 budget. That just gives you a picture of what that cost would be for this amount of labor. And essentially, we're looking at really the evening staff at Bassett and Sims. We're trying to mingle the two workforces, kind of split it that way. So again, our recommendation is that to allow Superior Commercial Cleaning to provide custodial support to us alongside Primero staff.
And remind me, Joe, again, where is Superior Commercial Cleaning out of? Is it Athens or here? Here, they are here. Okay. Thank you.
So are our custodial costs up because of the extra clean or down because of tardiness and absenteeism?
We're actually a little bit down right now, which again, we reinvested some of that money into attendance bonuses and things of that nature, and bumped up the base rate of pay, try to bring in additional workers. So that's one of the advantages of this model, is that, you know, if you do kind of get in that position, which is not a good thing, you can try to help yourself by reallocating those funds. We're currently doing that.
Any other questions?
So this just gives you a little more flexibility in how you handle it. Clean.
It does. I mean, it can really tell Primero, let's focus on these other buildings here. We're going to allocate these other two with Superior, and you know, let's just keep grinding after it. So give us that opportunity.
So Joe, with doing that, does it make us fully staffed in all the rest of the other schools then at that point, or are we still?
It doesn't. I mean, on a daily basis, and it's hard to pinpoint this, so don't quote me on the numbers, but I mean, we might see an average of 7 to 10 open positions on a night throughout our program. And we're looking to get 107% each day. We may have 7 to 10 unfilled positions, and then we may have as many just as many positions where someone calls out sick or they're unable to come in for whatever reason. So, we've been upwards of 20 people out on a given night. Now, we have what we call floaters. Those are people who may not be able to work full time, but they can come in on certain days, and we use them to fill in. We may take 2 people to fill in for 1, but we do have close to 24 floaters in our stable there that we can pull from to help backfill spots.
That seems to be a continual problem, that we had that problem before COVID. So, yeah, okay. So we'll put this on the consent agenda if everybody's all right with that. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Beggs is going to talk to us about emergency paid sick leave extensions.
So just a little bit of history so that I think most of you all know this, but just so that everybody is on the same page. Back in the spring, Congress approved the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, also known as FFCRA. And there are 2 parts of that act that affected us. The first one was Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, or EPSLA. And then there was the Emergency Family Medical Leave Extension Act, EFMLEA. All those acronyms we'll be dealing with. So what we're bringing to you tonight is really just related to the sick leave. Legal advice is that we don't do anything with anything related to FMLA. There's just all kinds of other guidelines that affect FMLA. So what we are bringing you tonight is just the request to extend the 80 hours per employee of available sick leave, if it has been unused, to extend that through March 31st. This act kind of went out of existence as of December 31st. They did not renew it. They could come back. Congress could come back and do an extension, but so far that has not happened. And so we would like to provide this for our employees who have not yet needed to use that leave. So again, it's not additional. It is an extension of what they provided back in 2020.
Okay.
We will call it 2021 COVID sick leave just to make sure that it is differentiated. We do have to report the sick leave for 2020 as a public government agency. We are not allowed to take any tax credit for that, as private agencies were available, private businesses were available to do. So we don't have to deal with that, but we do feel like this is an important benefit for our employees. Okay. Be happy to answer any questions.
No questions?
So since the government expired, we're just going to fund this then for the next 3 months?
We've been funding.
Oh, we have.
There
Okay.
was no
There's no
funding
government. Okay.
provided for us to do it. So we've been doing it, and we're just saying we'll continue to do it on our own until March 31st. We hope that that will give time for anyone who wants to get vaccinated to get vaccinated.
Great. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. We'll put this on the consent agenda. Great. All right.
I'll go ahead.
Do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to give everyone an update and kind of where we are heading back into school. I think we provided you all with a copy of a draft of communication that'll be going out to our families tomorrow. Just I wanted to run through kind of the high points with you and see if you have any questions we can answer, and just tell you what we're seeing at this point. First of all, I'll just take a look at the draft. It's it's a welcome back. We are planning on starting school back on January 11th as of 6:52 today PM. And so at this point, we're still a go for that now. And I say that kind of jokingly, but we're still looking at staffing. We're still looking at people, making sure that where we are, still looking at as you all get the daily updates of our spread levels and all those type of things also. So there's a lot of pieces that are both public facing and not public facing that go into these decisions that you all have become pretty well acquainted with, I think, over the past several months. But again, as of right now, we're in a fairly good position. We do expect that this is going to be a very uncertain time going through the next several months. We have some light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine. But as you all know, the federal and the state of Georgia have been a little slower than we anticipated, I think, with that, but they seem to be picking up. But we're just telling our parents and families and staff that, that to just be expecting that something could change, and we'll do our absolute very best to give as much notice of anything that we have to change along those lines, or any closings or any things like that, with as much time for people to be able to, my favorite word now, pivot and work forward. But it is important that, and remind again that ensure family-wise that you have a plan in case we do have to go back to digital learning. And we know it's not the best thing. It works well for some of our students, and some students are doing very well with it. But a lot of others aren't, and so we have a lot of things we have to take into account for that. And honestly, the data we've seen now, when we were kind of in this position at the beginning of the semester, we didn't have the data we have now. We didn't have a semester behind us. We hadn't been able to contact trace anything. And I do want to give a shout out, especially to the administrators and some of the others at the school level, and some of the ones up here with the contact tracing. They've done an exceptional job with that, very thorough, and it is time consuming. And all of our principals, APs, and everyone else they've designated have put in many, many extra hours of time every time something comes up. Even if it's a possible case, they're doing that contact tracing. So we have some pretty good data points and evidence of where things are coming from and where they're not. Everyone's been, for the most part, pretty truthful, we feel, when they've been asked questions regarding the contact tracing. Nobody, of course, likes to be put out on quarantine, but that's how we've stayed in school for the majority of the semester, and that's how I think we'll continue to be able to. But by looking at that, we're firmly convinced, and we've seen this on the national scale too, that school really isn't where the vast majority of transmission is happening. It's in the restaurants, it's in the bars, it's in family gatherings. It's I will reiterate that we did start the year, unlike a lot of districts, with a mask mandate, and I think that's actually has helped us quite a bit. I think we know there was some, what I call mission fatigue towards the end of the semester. People are tired of this. We're all tired of it. I'm tired of it myself, definitely. But we've had a rest, we've had a break, and we're going to start new, and we're going to be very, very vigilant on our mitigation efforts. And the mask wearing is not an option. That hasn't been all year, but we'll be monitoring that closely. So we've got all of that. Just really, it's just kind of the warning of that, and then just a reminder too for everyone. If you are experiencing any COVID symptoms at all, don't come to school. That's staff, kids, anyone. If you've tested positive or awaiting test results, don't come to school. That's honestly, that's kind of been, we've had a couple that have slipped up on that, and that was some of our larger ones that went out. People just have to do the right thing. Again, if you've been in close contact in the last 14 days, someone diagnosed with COVID-19, waiting, or someone that's waiting for test results, don't come to school. The absences are not, we're all conditioned for school that absences are a big deal, and they are, and kids need to be in school, but right now that's not the pressing need. Don't let that be a driving force going through those things. So just kind of, like I said, wanted to give you all an update. As of right now, we're planning to open all schools on time. Staff will be in starting on the 8th, this Friday, for teacher planning day. And as things change, we will stay in constant communication with, of course, you all and our families and our staff and students. Again, it's day to day. I mean, for us, it's a day-to-day roundup and checking and making sure everything's lining up. And I know there's a little controversy out there regarding the targeted closures, but we really feel that's the best way to go. Perfect example is at the end of this last semester, we had one school that was really having, some issues, and we did have to shut down a few days early, and that went very well. Staff especially needs kudos for that. They handled it exceedingly well, and the families were all very accepting and worked through it very well. Really had no issues. But then on the other side of the county, we had another school about the same size that had almost none. And it doesn't make sense to close down school where things are going well and kids are learning and teachers are teaching and everybody's staying relatively healthy. Is it more work on some of us? Yes, but it's well worth it to keep these kids in school as much and as long as we can. Again, always with the caveat that things could change tonight, and we'll always be making some massages, some changes, and all of these things. But we're blessed here in Barrow. We have great people, and like I said, the administrators at the school level and everyone up here at the PDC and the teachers also have just done an amazing job of managing these things. It's all new to everyone, but I really could not, given all the things that we've had to deal with and go through, and the rapid way we've had to adjust, and something the size of the Barrow County school system is not an entity that turns on a dime normally. It's less of a skiff, more of a battleship when you're trying to make turns, but we whipped that thing around pretty quick and did a good job. So we've been extremely pleased. I know it's scary. I get emails every day on both sides, as you all can imagine, and I know you all have had some too, but I know it's scary, it's frightening, and we know that there's been a surge, but we also have more data now to kind of prove what we thought going in and what we were told by the CDC going in, that school really seems to be about the safest place you can be in many, many ways. But again, we're watching that all the time. If that changes, then we will act accordingly. We will not hesitate to shut down where we need to and how we need to. So and that's going to cause even angst on other issues, but we'll get through it. It's a great community. It's a fantastic bunch of folks that work in our school systems, and they get what needs to be done for these kids done. And I couldn't be prouder of them. And I really feel like we're making the right decisions right now and pushing forward. So open for questions.
Dr. McMichael, have you heard anything from public health as to when the vaccine is going to be available for our teachers and administration and everything?
Time wise, and Ken, you have more information than I have, but we really haven't. We're here soon. They're still working, of course, on the elderly, the over 65, and some of those. Ken and Matt both have been in touch, and we've offered to help as much as we can if we need to bring folks into school, set it up to make it easy for our staff to have the health department come out to the schools and do it like we do with the flu shots. So we're standing by and ready to do it just as soon as they tell us, but they have not given us a real time frame yet.
Now, the good news, in one of his speeches this past week, Biden announced that he was committed to keeping kids in school. Right. And he was going to help fund programs to make sure that happened. So that's going to calm some of the people that were anti-school. I think it's going to calm.
I do too, and I think Well, it's like with the act that Cindy was just telling us about, I don't think many people out there really, until you ask the question, will realize that it's one of those things we have to do, but the funding never showed up with it, which is fine. So we need to do it for our staff and folks need it. But that level of support has been a challenge for all school systems across the nation. Yeah, it's been a bit inadequate in my personal and professional opinion.
The only thing that I would ask is that if for some reason we do have to shut down the system again, which I pray we don't, that you notify the board before
Absolutely.
I start getting phone calls and y'all start getting phone calls.
You will be the second to know.
I want to tell you, Chris, I really appreciate, I think that the county as a whole, just from, talking to individual people, the county as a whole has, when this first happened, it was just kind of a shock for everybody. Nothing like this had ever happened to any of us before. And, it made emotions spark and people were afraid and, that's human nature. And we had to deal with that and the beautiful things that it brought. But I do think we are all in a different place now where we are starting to live in a place where we don't fear the virus, but we respect it. And we understand that we have to respect it and we have to be careful especially for our staff. But I want to say, I know it would be easier on the staff to just say, let's go digital. It would be easier because, and to some parents, it would be easier because they can make a plan. But I ask for, when you get as a mom myself, I'm going to remember when you get the phone call that you got to pivot. Yep. This is the cost of not doing the easy thing and just shutting it all down all the way across. The cost is that we have to be willing to pivot. And I know that's going to be hard on families and it's going to be hard on your staff, but I do appreciate you giving the parents the opportunity to be able to do that, the ones who need it. And I know that some people, it's not a desire, it's a need. But I know it's hard.
It is. It's a tough thing to balance. It really has been and will continue to be. But we do know that our students, the health issues are definitely paramount for everyone. And this actually goes for staff too, to an extent. The social and emotional needs, the financial needs, and the instructional needs. I mean, we know kids that aren't set up for virtual. Our folks did a fantastic job, but there's still kids that are just never going to learn well that way. Just like there are some kids we found that do pretty well with virtual, and we're going to take a look at that, see how we can beef that up moving forward too. But we just can't, the problem with doing it the easy way in many ways is you pay for it later, always. And these kids, their academics and their instructional lives and everything else, down the road, they're going to pay for it. If we can't, we have to at least do our best to keep them in. I'm not saying we're going to be able to, and I want everyone to hear that very clearly here and out in the viewing audience that, it may come a time if things keep escalating that we have to say, we're going to shut it down again district-wide. But Mr. Stevens said it very well. I pray we don't. So far, the looking at it, targeting it by grade levels and doing it on a more micro scale has worked for us. So that's what we're going to stay the course and hold fast with that for now.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. At this time, we're going to go into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation, or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. Mr. Bailey. Vote to go into executive session. Yes. And also, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. And to discuss or vote to authorize negotiations to purchase, dispose of, or lease property, authorize ordering and appraisal related to the acquisition or disposal of real estate, enter into a contract for the purpose, disposal of, or lease property subject to approval And a subsequent public vote or enter into an option to purchase, dispose of, or lease real estate subject to approval in a subsequent public vote. So, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
okay, great.